Okay, this is composition 3, I think. We're gonna play this fast and loose, I think. By that I mean, if I make any mistakes, I'll just correct myself and keep going. Because I think I'm out of practice. During COVID, I did these video lectures all the time, but I've gotten used to being in the classroom again, and I'm a little bit camera shy or something. I think by the end of the quarantine period, I was talking to the phone like the phone was my friend, or a front row student who was interested in the lecture. But I kind of lost that somewhere since then. So I'll do my best to do this lecture here, and I hope it's interesting. I'm going to explain, we're going to talk about the textbook a little bit on chapter 3, which is a similar title to the title of my lecture here, developing a paragraph. They say the development of a paragraph. There's many different types of paragraphs. The most important thing is that you follow the structure that I mentioned already. You have a topic sentence and supporting sentences that follow them in an organized, orderly fashion, some sort of pattern, according to what kind of topic you're addressing, what kind of style of paragraph you're doing. We're going to do, not all of them, we're going to do some of the different ones as we build towards writing an essay by the end of the term. That's the goal, to write that paper with multiple paragraphs that are linked together. But as I said, when you write a single paragraph or just a few paragraphs, it's not organized as an essay. There's no introduction and conclusion. There's no separate paragraphs with that information. So you have to just get right to the point, because a paragraph isn't supposed to be 100 sentences. It's just uncomfortable for people to read. I don't think there's any rule that says that you're not allowed to do that. It's just after years and years of reading books and books and books, hundreds of books, that all have paragraphs of a certain length, around 10 to 20 sentences, you just get used to that. And especially for professors who are trying to improve people's writing and trying to give some guidelines, I've been told my paragraphs are too long by some professors, and so I accommodated them. That's it. I just made my paragraphs a little bit shorter and tried to pare them down and focus them a little bit more. So the same thing goes for you. Once you get to around 20 sentences, you should wrap up your points and then transition to another paragraph if you're going to add to it. Start another topic sentence that links. We'll talk about connectors a little bit in this class too, how to transition from one point to another. Once you've chosen a topic and you've written a good specific topic sentence, then you're ready to follow it up with whichever sort of approach you want to use in order to make your point. I would like you to do these pages in class, so I think I'll just explain about each type of paragraph in this lecture, and I won't bother assigning any homework because we have a holiday and we're going to miss another week. Sorry, I'm not going to bother. I meant the opposite. I'm not going to bother assigning stuff to do in class because we're going to miss 2 weeks in this class, right? We got 2 Mondays off, so I'm not going to see you for a long time. So I need you to do this for homework on the cyber lecture. There's my first big mistake, but we'll just keep going. So the following Monday is Hangul Day, for those of you who are not Korean. It's Korean Language Day, and so you don't have to study English on that day. You should study Korean. That's what the day is to celebrate, and it's a very logical language, so that's a good thing. But I would like you to, when we come back to class 2 weeks from now, I would like you to do the assignments that I put up on the cyber lecture so that we're not behind. I don't want you to be doing a lot of assignments during midterm exams. That's when we're going to be doing the creative writing workshop that I told you about at the beginning of the semester. So the paragraphs that they talk about in chapter 3, page 20 and 21, the first one they start off with is the detailed paragraph. And I've been talking about the word detail a lot. Maybe that is one of my own strong points in writing is using vocabulary. I remember specifically my teacher, my English teacher in high school saying, your argumentation and organization are not that good, but your diction is excellent. And I was like, what does the word diction mean? And my English teacher said, it means vocabulary, like the word dictionary, right? So they were really impressed with my vocabulary, but not with my essay writing skills per se. That took a long time to develop. So I understand, and you should understand, that it is a process. I think that everybody has to come to their own way of writing something. Once you understand the basics, you're going to have to make a decision about how you're going to write. Linear writing is basically the most common way to do it. Just start at the beginning and go to the end, as if you were doing a storyline. But when I write essays, especially longer essays, not a 3 or 4 page paper, but something that's 10 or 20 or more pages, and a journal article kind of thing, I write it in pieces and not necessarily in, from the beginning to the end. But it is a process, and there is a method to your madness. There has to be some sort of pattern. So we will do outlines at a certain point in this class too. You'll have to submit an essay outline before you actually submit your essay. And there's a reason that we call the programs that you use to write on a computer, they call it a word processor, because you are churning out words. People used to use typewriters before, and that now it makes it a lot easier to erase and rewrite and cut and paste and modify things and write in the middle and then right at the beginning and then go back to the middle and then right at the end. You have the freedom to do that kind of thing without making a mess of your paper and with using a pencil and eraser. I'm what do you call it? I guess old school now, because when I was young, there's still when I was in elementary school, there wasn't computers yet or the internet. Because I was born in the 80s. So I still like to use my pencil, and I still like to use, print off people's writing and check it by hand. I feel like it focuses me more. Maybe just having something physical is better because of all the time we spend in front of screens. We talked about social media as one of the topics we brainstormed in class, right? So the less time you spend in front of a screen, the better. So sometimes it's just better to pick up a pen and a pencil and to do it like that, especially because in the exam, you have no choice. When you sit down to write your exam, you're going to have to use a pen or a pencil, and you're going to have to write it by hand. So it's good to practice. When you submit things online, obviously I want it to be word processed. By the program of your choice, but saved in the file format that I asked you to, doc file or PDF. Okay, so back to details. Anyway, details are essential. You got to get your details correct. You have to check your facts, and you have to provide details if you want to be convincing. If you just speak in general terms, you can persuade people that their case is similar to the one that you're discussing, but if you want to prove your own point and make it difficult for somebody to criticize, the most important thing is to be specific and to develop your argument specifically and narrow it down to the point where it's kind of, I wouldn't say foolproof, but it wouldn't be easy for somebody to just provide an exception to the case that you're examining. That's why scientific papers, they tend to be very exact and specific about all the things they do. The details are, the data and the details and the facts that are provided are the essential part of the writing. And that would be an expository. That would be, just for the record, since we're going to talk about all different types of paragraphs. This is the details paragraph over here. What you need to use in an expository type paragraph are details, supporting details. So the paragraph that's in the textbook, it's called ultra marathons. I've run a marathon twice. I'm not bragging because my time wasn't very good. I tried to do it under 4 hours, but I failed. But 42 kilometers, 4 hours and 8 minutes and 23 seconds was what it took me. And I can say that I don't have any desire to try and train to get sub 4. So that's too bad that I missed by 8 minutes and 23 seconds. But ultra marathons are even more ridiculous. They can be 100 kilometers long. So I mean that's going to take you, I don't know how many hours. It can take days for them to complete these things. So there's Ironman competitions. Anyway, these are facts. These are details. They support the definition, right? I don't think there is that type of paragraph written on the board here, but this is not an exhaustive list by any means. I'll get to that in a minute, but there are many other types. If you search on the internet, you'll find what are the 4 main types of paragraphs, or what are the 6 main types, or what are the 10 main types, or the 7. They all have their own ways of categorizing it. That's why I have this style, type, method, category in quotation marks. These are one of my Korean students asked me years ago why I keep doing this. I wasn't aware that I do this, but they're not rabbit ears. These are air quotes, right? So styled, or category, it just means I'm saying this is a generalization. These all kind of mean the same thing. I guess it's a gimmick. I don't know where I picked it up. Comedians do it sometimes, so I figured I'd incorporate it into my repertoire. So the details, or in this case, we're talking about ultra marathons. That's the title of the paragraph. It's got supporting details in imperial measurements and in metric measurements too. 26 miles or 42.2 kilometers. They can be like 1,000 kilometers long. These things, they'll just go from one side of Australia to the other, although that's probably more than 1,000 kilometers, but that's what ultra marathons are. Ultra means maximum, right? So just a marathon is a very extreme thing as it is. Then ultra is a more extreme version. The next type of paragraph they show you is an explanatory. That's not written there either, but it makes use of explanation. Expository paragraphs make use of both types, details and explanation, but it's specific facts and a focus on a certain point that makes an essay expository or a paragraph expository. This is not going to be on the exam, by the way. These are just examples, but I want you to know what you can rely on. You can use details to support yourself, which is facts and data. You can explain things either by showing how things are done, or giving reasons for something. Or you can provide examples, right? It's like this. Compare it to one thing or another. All of these ones can be used in different amounts in the various types of paragraphs here. The process paragraph is just describing a process, the steps in something. It has to have a certain order and a certain procedure, like a recipe, a method to cooking something. You have your list of ingredients, and then you have an order that you follow, and hopefully you cook something that tastes good. Persuasive and argumentative paragraphs, I always thought they were kind of overlapping, but a persuasive paragraph doesn't really need to rely necessarily on a logical argument. I guess that's the loophole, is that persuasive paragraph, as long as it makes the person, the reader, change their mind, then it qualifies. An argumentative paragraph, though, has to rely on a logical argument and a sequence of support based on logical reasoning in order to convince somebody that you are correct. Persuasive could be completely counterintuitive, but as long as the person or the readers, your audience, agree or follow what you say, then you've done your job. So I guess you could say this one could be used to manipulate people in some cases, whereas an argumentative one would be more of a purely based on logic technique. A narrative one, we'll stay away from those as much as possible because that's for the creative writing classes that we're going to do. We'll talk about narrative paragraphs, which are a story. It's a paragraph that's a story. So you can use a story to make a point. You can even write an essay that includes a narrative in it. That's not what a formal essay looks like, though. In academia, you can't really do that. You can write something that's narrative, and it attempts to prove a point. So it has the object of an essay, but not the form. We'll get there. You'll see what I mean. Descriptive, meaning just giving the essential information. That's based basically on details. So this ultra marathon paragraph fits best into the descriptive paragraph type. The next one in the book is the explanation paragraph. It starts out with a quote. That's why it could be also described as a definition. But in this case, rather than just saying what it means, strictly speaking, like in a definition in an encyclopedia or in a dictionary, this person, they're using a proverb, a stitch in time saves nine, very common one, and giving some background information to give some context to allow a better connection with the reader. So it proceeds from there. My mother, who likes to sew, used this simple saying to teach me the value of working on problems when they're still small. So the writer's identifying who gave the advice and explaining at the same time, giving it some context. That's almost like using a narrative style in a sense to make your point, right? So these categories are useful, and I mean, in high school, my English teachers explained the different types of paragraphs and essays to us. I don't think many of us were paying attention because you don't have to pay for high school, but university, you're paying for it. And I paid for university myself, so I started to pay attention because you have to pass your classes. If you're paying for them, you have to work. And I didn't want to, once I realized that I had to pay out of my own pocket for my classes, then I started to make a better effort. It's amazing how that works. Down here, I have a comparative paragraph, which means you're taking two things. My favorite example is phones. The two smartphones that dominate the Korean market are of course, Apple iPhone and a Samsung Galaxy, and they always seem to be battling each other pretty evenly for different demographic groups. So it's useful to compare. Every time I go in, I've used an iPhone since the beginning, so every time I go in to change my phone to a new one, I consider whether I'm going to switch over to Android. And there's pros and cons, and you could definitely write a paragraph about that. You could instead just decide to analyze, break down the components, the pros and cons of just one of those two, just the iPhone by itself or just the Galaxy phone by itself. And that would be an analytical approach. And you can see these are kind of overlapping paragraph types as well. Okay, so the third paragraph there is an example paragraph, which is describes a person, place, thing, or event that supports your topic statement, right? Your topic sentence. This one really sounds to me like a narrative example, though. So I guess it qualifies as an event example, but it's really very close to a narrative paragraph. It's a memory. It's an actual event that happened, not an imaginary one. So it's not fiction. This is nonfiction. So I suppose it could be an example, a paragraph, but it does really sound like a narrative when you read it. The next page is a descriptive paragraph, but it's describing a process. So we call it a process paragraph. They're talking about how water evaporates, and you just basically have to put the details in a certain order. There's from 1 to 7. There's 7 steps to evaporation, and you have to write them down. I'm going to post the assignment on the webpage. It'll be due the day you come back. Okay, so the next lecture, the second online lecture that I do, I will give you homework for that as well, but I'm going to allow you just 2 weeks to do the 2 assignments, okay? So you can decide if you're going to do them both on the weekend before we come back, or you're going to do one at a time. It's up to you, but they'll both the assignments that I give you through these video lectures will be posted separately, but due on the same date. Now, I'm trying to think what that date is. I can't use my phone at the moment. It's what is it today? It's going to be October 2nd, 14 days. I guess it's October 16th. If I'm wrong about that, that's the day we will come back. It was 3 weeks off that we have from this class. So make sure you stay up to date. Watch this lecture by next week, and make sure you finish your homework by the time we come back to class 2 weeks from Monday. Okay? Thank you for listening, and enjoy the rest of your holiday. Still 2 days left. It's great. Talk to you soon.